Today's guest is a man on a mission to change the way we think about life itself. Not just how long we live, but how well we live. He's an entrepreneur, author, and pioneer who stands at the intersection of health, wealth, and human potential. He isn't here just to talk theory. He builds companies, launches movements, and challenges the financial industry to keep up with the science of longevity. His work is reshaping how we plan our futures, invest in our well-being, and create lives filled with purpose and prosperity. If you've ever wondered how to feel better, think clearer, live longer, or unlock more of what life has to offer, you're in the right place, Rise and Thrivers. This conversation, it will challenge how you think about success, but it will leave you inspired to take bold actions, practical steps towards thriving, not just surviving. Let's welcome a man who believes that the future is not something we wait for, it's something we design. Rise and Thrivers, welcome Jon Sabes to the show.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here. Rise and Thrivers, rock on.
Now,
Awesome.
are you in Mexico at the moment?
I am in Mexico. Yes, good call. I'm down on the peninsula of the Baja, area called the East Cape. It's where the California surfers who got sick of the California crowds and their waves found some of the greatest surfing in North America down here. So that's one of the things that brought me down.
Oh, right. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
As I mentioned just before we hit record, listeners, I've been loving researching Jon, and we've got the power of double Johns today. So there's always something special when a couple of Johns get together, I find, Jon. Now, every journey starts with a great spark. So, what was the moment that made you say, "This is what I'm here to do"?
For me, it's always sort of continuing to peel back the onion. What I'm here to do today was not what I was here to do yesterday, and I think that's part of our own individual journey, which is to recognize that the beauty of that, and to be self-aware of where you're at in your journey. I feel incredibly blessed to be sitting here with you talking about healthy, wealthy longevity, working on the things that I have been working on throughout my career, which has really been financial services based, but it crossed into this area of longevity and health and wellness. And it has brought, just sort of, the life of my dreams. And I'm just thrilled to be here to be sharing what I've learned on my journey. Self-educating myself along the way, and put that into my book, and share what I've learned with others, in hopes it helps them.
You definitely walk the talk. For those, I'll have all your social links in the show notes. But listeners, have a click on those, and you'll see Jon and the outdoor lifestyle, looking very fit and healthy, I might say. So I guess you can't put out a book called "Healthy, Wealthy Longevity" without walking the talk.
Yeah. What's the saying? I mean, yeah, let your actions speak louder than your words, I
Yep.
mean, and so that's kind of, yeah, I'm not making any big claims on anything other than my own journey and sharing it. But yeah, I believe I walk the walk. Everything I talk about in my book, it comes from my own personal experience, my own personal learning, my own personal application of it to design this life, and to recognize how just incredibly valuable our own time on this planet is, how longevity is this invaluable gift we all have, and how to cherish it, how to care for it, and get the most out of it.
I love it. So, the book Healthy, Wealthy Longevity, The Good Things in Life for as Long as Possible. That's certainly very, very appealing. The book bridges, I love the science in it. It bridges science, strategy, and mindset. So, I wonder if that was a challenge blending all those three things into what feels practical for readers.
It was really challenging, but I'm very proud of the book. I mean, I think the book itself is very practical, it's straightforward. And I came to this realization again. I know I've been listening to a number of your casts, which, by the way, are great, and about positive mindset, positive psychology. I've been a student of positive psychology for decades, and I've used it in my own application to achieve what I've achieved in life. And I really came to this realization of just how this pursuit of happiness, right, at a practical level, is built on health and prosperity. And if you focus on those two things in your life, you increase the odds of getting what you want out of life. Like, good things will come your way. You will suffer bad luck, you will suffer challenges, but those will be temporary setbacks, so long as you're focused on your health, good health, and financial prosperity. And so daunting, and in terms of bringing those two concepts together, I'm really proud on how they actually do come together. And I was, again, in my research for the book, I was always just dismayed when I would come across these happiness books and would talk about happiness, how I'm supposed to be happy, and this and that. And I think practice metacognition or something, even meditate, as simple as meditate, when it's really hard to do if your bills are unpaid, your mortgage, you're getting kicked out of your house, your car's in the shop, you can't afford to get it out. I mean,
Mm.
these stressors are just so difficult when we lack some level of prosperity. And so I think bringing that into the conversation, including it into the conversation and talking about it, again, at a practical level, what is prosperity? How do you get it? And to give people some guidance on that, at least foundationally, similarly to their health, in terms of the science of it, the science of health, the science of prosperity. There is a science to both of these. And again, in my own journey, I became somewhat educated, self-educated around the science of health and DNA and gene expression, and through my own work and through my experience, the science of money and the language of money, and where does it come from, and how do you get it, and how do you keep it.
I love the scientific aspect and also the practicality of both your book and the prompt journal, which we'll get to in a moment, because it's real. And that's what I've noticed with the work that you're offering. It's real. You're not up here going, oh, let's vibrate into the next dimension. You know, there's science back behind what I'm saying, what I'm doing, and here's my experience. And here's things that you can do today to improve both your longevity, your health, and your wealth. Now, I know you've got so many things in the book, and we're not going to go through all of those in the interview, but I'd really be interested in something, a key takeaway from the book in all those three areas that our listeners could be listening to today and go, yeah, well, okay, that might be something I could do. Apart from audiobook and the prompt journal, which will have links in the show notes for, but yeah, what's something someone that listening today going, I'm a bit overwhelmed by the health goals, my financial worries, and lack of clarity. I'm listening to John and John. What's something I can do today?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing to do is to break it down. And I like to talk about thinking small. When you think of your health, think of yourself as a molecular being. I mean, while we're not going to meditate to the next dimension, we should start thinking about ourselves as these wonderful biological machines that start with something called DNA. And while DNA sort of sets the pathway of our health, and it's created through this magical moment between your mom and your dad, so much of the journey of how that DNA is expressed through lifestyle is under your control. And so, same way, like your money and your financial situation, you may come from a wealthy family, you may come from nothing. I mean, in terms of money, that prosperity journey, again, is you have so much agency and control over it. And so, when you break down the science of health, the one thing I want people to take away from this conversation is to recognize that lifestyle, how we live and how we think, and how we live means thinks about how we eat, how we move, what purpose we have, and how we connect with others. Those key lifestyle factors drive so much of the gene expression that creates this healthy person, this healthy biological machine. And so the one takeaway I want people to come away with is how much agency you have in your own journey, in your own health. And the same way I would say around wealth, which is, again, starts with financial literacy. It's like it is the DNA of prosperity, is of wealth, of financial wealth anyways. If you're not financially educated, if you don't have financial literacy, the one thing you can do today is start the journey of becoming more financially literate. Again, I break all those things down in the book. What's a stock? What's a bond? What's a life insurance policy? Should I buy a home? Should I rent? I mean, there's lots of, and so again, there's so much to unpack right there.
Mm.
So I'm just talking about the basis of financial prosperity and the basis of your health and how much agency you do have in your own journey.
Gotcha. For you, how does that look like on a day to day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, it looks like a lens through which I see what you see life. I mean, and I've heard you speak about, you have to vision where you want to go in life, right? So you need to have a clear vision of where you want to head. And
Mm.
I would suggest to you that that place should be based around good health and financial prosperity, right? So you have to build on those two things. So if you take every action through a lens of living healthier, should I have a drink tonight or shouldn't I? Should I go to the gym and exercise or not? Should I take the stairs or the elevator? So you should I react negatively to this, comment that someone said on social media, or can I react positively to that? So you have these choices throughout your day, and you have
Mm.
control over how you react in your decisions. And so through that lens, you begin to distinctly building blocks to build this life. And so really it comes down to that. It's to see the lens, to be self-aware, to take control and to take action in furtherance against the object of your desire.
It goes to that saying, if you believe that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you, you can then realize, and what you're talking about is how empowered we actually are to make better choices, and how we react as well to things that happen. So we don't necessarily can control what happens to us, but we can control our reaction to it. And I really like how you've broken that down into these are small decisions that we get to make every day, and they have such a major impact on us. That stair one I love. And I think people have that knowing of what to do. So it's the difference between the knowing and the doing. And I really thought it was great when I saw that you had the Pursuit of Happiness prompt journal, because I really do think that can shift the knowing from the doing. We all know if we eat healthy, move our bodies, and have good family connections and good connections with people, we're probably going to have a good life. So we know it, but we don't necessarily do it. So this shift from the knowing to the doing through your Pursuit of Happiness prompt journal, I'd really like you to take us through some of that, because uh, I just love what I've seen with it, and I'm going to be ordering it. And you get three, so don't just get one; you get three when you order it. I love that too. Tell us all we need to know about that, because I really think this is such a practical tool that we all can use to have a better life, and really that bridge between the knowing and the doing.
Yeah, the prompt journal is something I designed. I've been working on for decades. Probably, well, I should say 10 years. I've been practically trying to design it. I first learned about it, this idea of prompt journaling, from the Tim Ferriss show. And Tim was talking about the 5-minute journal. So I went to buy or look at buying the journal, and, it was this big book, and, had, 365 days of entries in it. And I'm traveling all the time for business. And so I took some of the concepts there, and I took some other concepts, and I designed my own little, what I call, it's a prompt journal. Prompt journaling is a common tool, but I broke it. I created a small one that I could put in my pocket, one that would go in my briefcase, in my vest pocket. It was always with me. And so this becomes your own self coach. We talk about having coaches, but it's your way for which you to can direct your thoughts towards what you want. So I always like to say we're in a battle for our own attention and intention, and we really need coaching. We need to remind ourselves on what's important to us, and then we need to write it down. We need to write it down, and we need to do that frequently. And so this daily prompt journal has a morning reflection and an evening reflection. I tend to do the entire day each morning. So I will think about my yesterday. What did I marvel at? What could have gone better, right? And then I set my priorities for the day. What am I grateful for? What are the top three things I want to accomplish today? And so it's this it's this little it's your little friend, and so it's small. So there's only 30. The reason there's 3-pack because it's 30 entries, and there's room for notes in the back, and it's just your little buddy. And so it's a month long exercise, and at the end of the month, then there's a reflection. There's a moment to reflect on your daily entries, and if you can get 30 in a row, you're really doing something right. And I will tell you, you will be just amazed by the progress you will make in your own goals and your own objectives towards these things. As you say, we all know we should do: move more, eat wisely, connect, live with purpose, connect with others. But am I doing it? Am I calling my mother? Am I calling my brother? Am I taking steps to build my relationships? And so that's our way to, and it's a tool. It's a very, very practical tool. And yeah, I've been handing them out for years. And so then as I just made them for myself, and then I would just hand them out, and people would be like, "Oh man, I got your thing. It's great. Could I get more?" And so when I wrote the book, obviously the book is about my journey and my practice, and daily prompt journaling, and this own little journal has been a very important part of my own journey to do self mastery. How
Mm,
do I
mm.
how do I master this person called me?
Well, congratulations on both the book and the prompt journal, because we need things like that out in the world. And I'm looking forward to doing it. It's like one of those things as well. I think the world, and it's a generalization, not based on anything but my own experience, I think the world's moved away from writing, from the pen and paper. We're on our phones, we're on computers, we're whatnot. And I have heard that your brain does process things differently between when you write something down on paper than when you type it out on a keyboard. I don't know the research behind that, but I have heard that. And I know just from personal experience that it is definitely a different feeling. You're probably using different parts of your body and brain to do it. And I've also heard that it's good sometimes to read back some of those things, because I know in your prompt journal, I think there's 3 things that you're grateful for as well. Is that one of the prompts?
That's one of the prompts. Yep.
Yeah. Going back, especially if after you've done it for a month, or if you've even done it for a week, whatever, and going back, and there we go. And John's showing up his one that he's filling in. So you can go back and read those, and it also fires off great sparks in your brain because you are remembering those things that you were grateful for. So it's a bit of a library as well of things that you can bank and come back to whenever you need it. Definitely, there's another expression that I love is don't just think it, ink it. And we think a lot, but we do. There's the power of writing is just amazing. Is there something that an outcome that either you've reached or other people that have been using the prompt journal have reached that, and they've attributed that outcome to the journal writing?
Just taking a step back on this idea of writing, because I think you've hit on something just incredibly powerful, and people really overlook this one. And so I want to weigh in with you on that one.
Please do.
And let's talk about the science of writing. What we all live in our thoughts, right? So thought is chemical energy. In fact, in the book, I like to talk a lot about thoughts as chemical energy. And when we emotionalize this chemical energy, right, as sort of an analogy, we're putting, it creates more, they're more energetic thoughts. And so I think when we think about positive psychology, I do this interesting thought exercise where if you start to think about how you manifest your thoughts, how do your thoughts become the things in your life, the real things in your life? How do you manifest those? You must emotionalize them. And when you emotionalize something, you're adding energy to the thoughts. Okay, so that's one of the key aspects, right, of a positive psychology practice, which is clearly emotionalizing your thoughts, giving them energy. Now, when you write that thought down, you are literally transferring chemical energy into your brain, into mechanical energy onto the piece of paper. And not only that, this thought that just was in your head in the form of chemical energy now resides on a piece of paper, independent of your thought. Now, this, for those who are aware of like something called the butterfly effect, right? So there's this idea of the butterfly effect that when a butterfly flaps its wings, as subtle as it is, it can be felt across the earth. And so when you write it down, you're creating a butterfly effect of your thought. You are amplifying it. And the more you write it down and the more you stay focused on it and the more you continue to reiterate it in your brain and allow your subconscious to go to work, the quicker it comes into reality. And so that's this beauty of writing it down. And the first mistake most people make is what?
They
They
don't
don't
write
write
it
it
down.
down. They don't write it down.
Yeah.
So, so, so yeah. So writing it down is a big deal.
I remember doing a Bob Proctor course, You Were Born Rich, and one of the first things it gets you to do is write down your goal on a card and carry it around with you. So it's there with you, and you can read it every day. And that emotionalizing the psycho-cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, love that book. Lucky enough to read that early in my journey. And to be honest, I get the concept, but I don't know if I've actually really emotionalized it. So I really like this reminder and this how to that we're talking about now. And for anyone listening to, you might be like me, go, yeah, I get that on an intellectual level, but have we really sat down, wrote things out, and then emotionalized it on a daily basis to put that energy out into the world? I noticed that lately, it might just be where I'm at the moment, but I noticed a lot of things, that messages that I'm getting on is, oh, how to manifest this, how to manifest this, how to manifest this. You've got to put in the work, don't you?
Yeah. It's hard work. It's real hard work. Yeah, it's real hard work. You know, nothing comes easy, especially nothing worthwhile. It's going to
Yeah,
come easy, right?
yeah.
And I mean, again, my book, what I've tried to do is modernize some of these old school principles. These are old
Mm,
school, 101, Bob Proctor, positive psychology, think and grow rich. Okay.
mm,
I can think about growing rich, but am I going to get rich? I don't think so. And that's the big critique, right? Because you got to take the action. And of course, he's saying a lot more when he wrote that book. But how do you modernize that in a way
mm,
that's current, that's relevant, and also talking about our health, and modernizing it around the science of health and we know so much more about this thing called a human being. Again, I talk a lot about in the book. I grew up in the '80s, and I learned about DNA in high school in the '80s, and well, I mean, it wasn't a lot, but we didn't know much then. Compare that to today and what we
mm,
know, and the sequencing of the human genome. And now we can sequence it for the cost of a plane ticket. And we have machine learning and AI who's interpreting this data. We're in a really interesting place around health. And what we do know, and we can talk about movement and eating wisely. I mean, you can talk about all that stuff, but if you don't actually understand or appreciate the mechanic on how that actually translates into health, I'm much less motivated to do it. It's kind of like, well, you should you can have chicken soup when you have a cold. You're like, it'll cure. Like, well, why? How does it work? Now, if someone explained to me, well, this is actually how it cures your cold, I'd be like, give me some chicken soup. I got a cold. So when I actually learned how DNA expresses and how our DNA we're born with is about 20 to 30% of who we are. And so what is the other 70 to 80%? What's driving that? And it's as simple as movement, eating, connecting, and purpose. I'm like, oh shit, I'm motivated to do this.
mm.
I get it now. And then I became aware of the folks from the Blue Zones, and I work with Dan Buettner and the folks with Blue Zones. And they reaffirmed this, like with their study, which is these people in these regions called blue zones live measurably longer without chronic disease, pain, or suffering, and are measurably happier. Incredible. And they don't even have any money. They're in some of the poorest places in the world. So how is this possible? And so back, using blue zones as a framework for there's evidence there's evidence on how this all works, and now we can actually understand biologically how it works. And so when you connect that up, at least if you're like me, I'm like, okay, I can do that now. I can get behind that.
Mm-mm.
You know?
Yeah, knowing the why and having the understanding makes a massive, massive, massive difference. You touched on the money there because it's a really interesting concept where, as you said, in the blue zones, they don't have a lot of money, but they're living longer and they're happy as well. In where we live, money does give us choices, and it helps us live to a certain extent. Like if you're an adventure kind of person like you are, you need some cash behind you to go and do the things that you want to do. And in the end, we can't take it with us. So, what's your philosophy on the financial aspects of longevity? Because I know that we don't just want the money just to last. We want it to help us live. So, yeah, what's your philosophy on the financial aspects of longevity? Thanks for joining us on Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness with John Merkus. Remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and you do matter. Embrace the journey of personal growth and motivation. Let's go out there and do something great. Follow or subscribe for more insights and inspiration every Tuesday. Until next time, stay awesome.